This is Frank Islam, Chairman and CEO of FY Investment Group and your host of Washington Current Review, where we interview leading voices from business and politics that impact you, the viewer. Today, our guest is Bharat Bhargave, and he's going to tell you all about bank world. So if you haven't heard anything about bank world, he's going to tell you all about it. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
You're most welcome. Tell me a little bit about your work, your company, and your background about the bank world. Is that a bank world is the reverse of the World Bank?
No.
And so tell us a little bit about that.
Right. Yeah, I do get asked that question once every year at least. But yeah, it is in the field of banking, so it's about the world of banking. And we are in the field of economic development. And we work internationally primarily. And it's primarily about poverty reduction. But we have decided a long time ago that poverty reduction kind of sets the bar a little low. So we have been saying we're striving for prosperity around the globe. And the reason we do that is because while it is the objective, poverty reduction is an important part of it, but we don't work directly. We work through banks and governments of different countries. So to inspire them, it's far more inspiring when they're involved in creating wealth and prosperity and well-being
So
of their...
it creates a common cause.
It's cause, and it's an inspiring cause, so we do that. But it's all about economic development, and I do want you to know that we're not an NGO. It is a management consulting company, so we do it commercially, but that is our main mission, main activity.
So you mentioned about economic development,
Yeah.
sir. So what exactly does your company do towards the economic development?
Okay, sure.
And the poverty you talk about, which is all over the world, which includes the Americas, the South Americas, the Asia, as well as Africa. So you can touch upon that later on.
Sure. Now, in terms of what exactly, at a granular level, the number one thing that we get involved in promoting entrepreneurship, either directly or by creating enabling environment that would foster, that would facilitate and allow enterprises, small businesses to grow. Now, we do that through government policies and laws, but most importantly through the banking system, financial sector development. And in that case, for example, one of the biggest things that is needed in most countries, as you know, SMEs, small businesses, are the engines of economy.
That drives our economy.
That drives our economy. In fact, in many countries, 80 to 90% of GDP is produced by small businesses. They are more agile, they are more innovative. And so promoting them is the most important thing. And the flip side is that they are the ones who usually are not able to get financing. So we prepare banks to be able to successfully lend to small, medium-sized businesses. That is a number one concern. Of course, we're involved with a number of aspects, but this is one big aspect.
The small business as well as the entrepreneurs, that's what your main focus is, and providing the access to the capital.
Access to capital, access to finance.
Okay, so give us some examples of your work.
All right, so let me just say this. You mentioned America, and there is some work in America too, but primarily our work is in emerging economies. And emerging economies, one of the things is many of them are ex-communist countries.
Emerging markets?
Emerging markets. Yeah, emerging markets is a term used for what is called transition economies, such as those that came from communism, and those that are considered developing. So a combination of those is called emerging. That's a broad term. But what happened, just for background, the key point is that during communism, the banks as well as manufacturing facilities were all owned by the government. So production and employment was the only concern of the government. So if a manufacturing facility required loan, they would just tell the banks to make the loan. So when 70 years you are taking orders or making loans, you can imagine the banking culture was non-existent.
Right.
They don't know how to make judgment about banks. And Frank's up, the number one job of a banker is being able to lend, not to, on credit cards or so forth, business lending. Most people don't think of it that way, but 90% of revenue or profits come from, and the impact of banking is in lending to businesses. And that's the capability that did not exist. Even some of the socialist countries do not have that capability. So our big focus has been training in them. I'll give you, I'll tell you how important this is. In the US, when I was in banking, I would tell my lenders, if you made a loan, a year later it's going bad, but at the time you did everything right, that's fine. You're supposed to take risk. But if we find a loan that's paying well, but somehow we checked your files and they were done sloppy, I'll take your lending authority away. So lending skills is the number one requirement for banks, and our people train in those areas. That's one example. The other example is macroeconomic. While we were crisis was going on, we were working closely with governors of central banks to avert the impact of that in their countries. Capital markets, also privatization, and those kind of things are secondary part of our work.
So you work all over the world. You mentioned that the people who do not speak English, how do you communicate with them?
Oh, yeah, good point. Well, okay, some people do speak in English, but even many of the central bank governors or ministers of finance, they may know some English, but either they're hesitant or as protocol, they must speak in their local languages. So we have gotten used to working through interpreters. That's just common because you're in Mongolia, your team is working in Mongolia or Russia or in Africa or Middle East. We just work with interpreters. Now, as a result of my early work, I have gotten interested and I've learned Arabic and Russian and French. But primarily for business purposes, we use interpreters. Yeah.
You use them to sort of translate the language for you.
We always have interpreter as our staff constantly. No matter where our people go, our staff, they always have interpreters.
So do you do anything in South Asia? So let's suppose in South Asia, in a small village, somewhere in India, people need access to the capital.
Right.
And the microfinancing things, there's a lot of things that go on.
Right.
How do you connect the bank to the small business to make things happen?
Now, there are two parts to this. We have worked in South Asia. Presently, we're in Afghanistan.
Afghanistan?
Yeah, presently our people are in Afghanistan.
Well, that's a good country to be in because they need a lot of entrepreneurs, small business
exactly.
to spur the economic growth.
That's exactly, and that's true everywhere. We have worked in Pakistan, where central bank and bank, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka. India, we have not worked on the banking side as much. I had an opportunity to lead the effort of developing a national handbook for public-private sector development for infrastructure finance. As you know, historically, governments funded infrastructure. In 2005, 2006, we wrote a comprehensive manual that was distributed to states and all the ministries that are involved in infrastructure, which allows the government to use private financing and allows the private sector to both build and operate, and the government is left with the job of conceiving projects, bidding and contracting out, and managing. And so that's the best combination. So India is using a lot of PPP. As you know, here, this the metro that's been built, that's being done
the PPP, right? PPP for the audience is public-private partnership.
Public-private partnership, in which private sector builds them, and after 30 years, 20 years, that project is turned over to the government, and they charge fee, and that has been found to be the best method. Now, in India, there are a couple of other things we did. As you know, when insurance was was privatized, meaning it used to be only government. At that time, they needed to train a regulator, just like central bank is regulator for banking, and SEC type is the regulator for capital markets. Insurance regulator was needed. So we trained in Hyderabad, the agency that was for Indian insurance regulatory authority.
So you work with the local authorities there. For example, if you take an example of Pakistan as well as Afghanistan, which is pretty much dangerous these days.
Right. I've been there.
In terms of security, I'm sure you have been there. So let's suppose you have to go to Kabul, Islamabad.
Right.
So what exactly do? You contact the people, local people, and then get connected with the bank to facilitate this loan and
We actually do not facilitate loans. We don't get involved in actual money, but a lot of these projects are either funded by U.S. government or World Bank or Asian Development, IFC, and in some cases we have direct contract with the banks. So they are sponsored based on the needs. So the scene is already set for us to go. So in Central Bank of Pakistan, that was done through an organization, and we advised, and again, Habib Bank.
Which is in Pakistan, Habib Bank.
Yeah, Habib Bank, yeah. We were with them, for our people were with them. I went, but our people were there for quite a while working with them.
Okay, so that's how you work with.
That's how we work. But we do have direct contract also, but a lot of them are, as you know, U.S., no matter what people say, U.S., and they're always geopolitical as well as economic reasons, but there is a lot of money spent on development of countries, and we are on the economic development track. There are other things done, democracy and health and all that, but our work is on economic development.
You do anything in U.S. also?
In the U.S., Mr. Islam, we have done a little bit work. For example, the U.S. Treasury, we have done 3 contracts with them. They said they collect $2 trillion, and so they wanted to improve their banking relationships, how their monies are managed by banks. So we advise them on how to refine their relationships, because you can see even the slightest difference in cash collected or fees changes, it's a huge amount for the government. So we had 3 contracts with them. We also, on behalf of OCC, we examine national banks.
You're talking about the Office of Comptroller of Currency.
Exactly. Office of Comptroller of Currency, most people only know Federal Reserve and FDIC, but the national banks are examined, overseen by OCC. And OCC oversees these banks, but our company has former examiners that also examine banks on behalf of OCC.
So, Bharat, share with our viewer the human interest values as far as the bank board is concerned, as far as your effort and help is concerned.
Yeah, well, I know technical stuff gets a little too heavy, but human interest-wise, since your audience is from South Asia, I'll tell you 2 things. One is that in Russia, when I first went in '93, my taxi driver recognized that I had originally come from India, and he said, you know, in Russia, all our women watch Indian films and cry 2-3 times a week. I was in Karachi, and I had a meeting with Dr. Shamshad Akhtar, who was the governor of Central Bank at one time. I had some time in the afternoon, so I went to Mazar-e-Qaeda, and after seeing it, didn't take very long. So I was walking back, and there were about 10, 15 young 12, 13-year-old children, girls and boys, sitting on the lawns doing antakshari.
Doing what?
Meaning songs.
Okay. Yeah.
And so as I passed, one of them waved at me, and I waved back, and I stopped there. And so after a couple of songs, they got stuck, and I believe it was N that they had to sing. So I said, how about this? And they cheered and said, yeah. And so they started singing that. And then when that was over, the other side said, Uncle, hamare liye bhi bataiye. So anyway, to me,
it was a good experience.
To me, every country, the human side has been so wonderful. As tourists, I would learn a little bit, but working with them, advising, employing them, and working with them in their interest, it gives me opportunity to get to really know them.
And to engage them.
Yeah,
that's the best way. Is there anything else you want to share with our viewer?
Well, I would say that every country practically I've gone to, there is great fascination for the United States. And
America, an American dream.
American dream. And I was in Lebanon, and I asked for a taxi. They said, for where? I said, for U.S. Embassy. I said, sir, you're going to embassy. Can you get me a visa?
So the people who still want to come to our country.
You know, in every country, I won't say everybody in every country, but every country, I can tell you story after story, fascination and wanting to come to America. It's just, it's just such a dream country.
This is still country still provides the gate of opportunity for all people. From every
Opportunity-
end of the earth, people can come and make and realize and achieve their dreams.
Exactly.
That's what you believe in it.
I do believe in it.
And that's why I share with your views. This is a great country. I take a lot of pride in this country. I made it in America. I want to give back to America, give back to our country, our community. I would hope you share with my values and qualities.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I totally believe in what you're saying.
Thank you very much for
My
coming. I
pleasure,
appreciate
Mr.
it
Islam.
very much.
Such a pleasure to be with you.
This is Frank Islam, wishing you a great week. Thank you very much for watching.